All right, live stream is ready.
Okay. I'll just look at this and make sure it's right. Okay. Okay, it's scheduled for 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Can you make that Facebook post so I can share it? I guess I should like her.
started shortly. I saw that.
Full house. It's been fun either way.
It is. We got a live stream going. We're giving this panel to the camera for the house. First convention of the panel, or first panel of the convention.
Strike that word for a second.
Yeah. Man, people trickle in throughout. Wouldn't be the worst turnout. Panel happening in here 4 minutes. Oh, there's a big old sign outside, so. So,
Come on
so
down.
fun.
We're gonna abandon y'all probably around 5:30 to go to the comic thing next door. Sorry.
It's fine.
Didn't want to get your hopes up too much.
It's the first panel of the convention, so.
It's Friday. It's Friday.
Exactly.
It's the first day. It's raining and icky outside.
Right?
It's not.
And then it's also like some people don't know where things are.
No, I
So,
didn't.
I didn't know where this was. I just, why I showed up too early because I was like, I should leave earlier so that I don't know.
I looked out, I was gonna go out one end, they went, no, walk all the way across those doors that are over by the place where they're giving the soft drinks, or selling the soft drinks, and walk out there. It comes out right across from the elevator.
Yeah.
started doing a lot of stuff today, so that tomorrow I can just.
I do want to try to one a day, but 10 on one and a normal. I don't think it costs extra. It didn't say anything about it. I don't know. So that's good.
The extra is the autographs and the floor.
Alright, scheduled at 6. What time do you have your breakdown?
They're sitting at.
And done breakdown.
I don't know. I know that when I was at the Greater Austin Comic Con in June, I wasn't even gonna take a picture, but one of the volunteers was like, take pictures.
Actually, I don't know that one's on.
Because I know, because I'm
That
not.
side was
Yes,
just-
that you probably can get away with a lot. Yeah.
Figure it out.
You can get away with
Yeah.
it.
Fine.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna take pictures anymore.
We'll find
Like, because I had just gotten there, so I just seen what's going on. But today, like, I obviously would take my flash off and sneak a picture. But, yeah,
It's pretty well lit in there.
exactly.
Hi, how are y'all doing?
Get started in just a couple of minutes, see
Yeah.
if anybody else trickles in.
Yeah.
I think so. I think people are still getting here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Traffic is terrible. Are y'all from Austin?
Sort of.
Sort of. Well, yeah, traffic is
Close.
135.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I got out of work early. I was like, I have to run. I work at an elementary school, so I'm like, as soon as kids are gone, I have to go.
yeah, no time for us to. Yeah, it's Friday.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta get out of here. I have a panel. So,
You know, in Austin, anytime after like 4:30, traffic will just
it's,
stop.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's
You're not gonna
awful.
go anywhere after
No.
that.
Exactly.
I'm just glad there's like a panel later tonight that we wanna go to, so we'll be here for a while. We don't have to worry about traffic going home, I don't think.
Yeah,
Probably not.
so around 9:30.
Yeah.
And I wanna build, they wanna do like a major league soccer stadium in this general area too.
You know, I was just hearing about that.
That's a terrible idea. I don't have anything in soccer or football.
Yeah.
It's the location.
Yeah, the
Well,
location.
I didn't know, like, I don't know where they want to do the stadium, but I just heard this morning from PE coach at my school that they want to have a major league soccer team here, and he was like wearing the hat. He's like a big soccer fan. I'm like, oh, that's cool, but yeah,
It's
like,
not far away from there, like it's downtown-ish. I wanna say near Auditorium Shores area,
Yeah.
somewhere
Okay.
around there, which is.
They wanna actually build a stadium,
Yeah.
like a complete new stadium, with
Yeah.
traffic, with parking.
In this area, yeah.
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, come on in.
Hi, come on in.
I'm not sure if you'll be able to find a seat, but
All right, you wanna go ahead and get started?
sure, why not?
Okay.
Get started.
Thank you for coming. My name is Scylla Hagel, and this is my wife and co-host Shannon Hagel,
Partner in crime.
partner in crime. We host a YouTube show called JoF TV that you can find at youtube.com/JoFTV. And I also have a fan fiction site at unchartedone.net, which is what we're actually here to talk about today, fan fiction. What was once considered a very underground thing is becoming more and more mainstream, and we've seen a lot of examples of it lately. The Webster's definition of fan fiction is stories involving fictional characters that are written by fans and often posted on the internet. By the strictest definition, some of what we're seeing in canon could be considered fan fiction now. One of the examples that immediately sprung to mind when I started thinking about this was you actually gave me Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
One of the biggest comic book fans there is, and has been a writer to the Green Arrow and actually created the character of Ian Dearden. So,
He's written a lot of Batman comics and stuff too.
right. So by the strictest definition of fanfic, Mia Dearden could be considered an OC fanfic character that just happened to be in canon because he had the company backing him. It poses the question, is there such a thing as fan fiction anymore, really? Or is it all just licensed and unlicensed?
That's a good point. Because like the 50 Shades franchise franchise started out as
It's
a Twilight fan fiction.
Masters of the Universe,
Yeah,
and
and
got
now it's-
reworked.
Somehow it got published, and
And while I will say, not a fan of the books, the movies were great. I love those movies. I won't read the books.
yeah.
They-
But I mean, she made a lot of money. So
she did,
like,
and what was originally fan fiction.
yeah. So like, could any writer of fan fiction like find a big break and just change their characters' names, or like get backing from the comic companies, or it's pretty awesome.
And then there's the idea that fandoms are getting recognized within the properties that they are fans of. You brought Supernatural up to me,
Yeah.
and actually made me watch an episode.
Oh yeah, it was great. I'm a huge Supernatural fan. I'm so behind, but anyway, I told her, I was like, the 200th episode is called fan fiction, and it's just like this huge love letter to the fans, basically. And I'm like, they say the word Destiel, which I will ship forever. Just saying. Anyway, so I was like, you have to watch this. So I made her sit through it.
And they do use a lot of
reference
fanfic
it.
terms in there, like
Yeah.
the when Seth was the subtext.
Subtext, and they
talk about
kind of,
subtext and when.
they didn't say what
No,
subtext,
but they
it was
alluded to it.
referenced.
And the sad part is, even not being a Supernatural fan myself, I know these terms. That's how prevalent fan fiction can be. Even if you're not a fan of the original property, you can fall into knowing things about the fan fiction and the fandom, just by being around events like this, where you're with other fans. Another example is Doctor Who. Russell T Davies was a Whovian long before he ever wrote anything on Doctor Who, and he's the one responsible for bringing it back. So he even wrote some Doctor Who fan fiction prior to being the showrunner. Everything he did for Doctor Who could be considered fan fiction. Same thing with Stephen Moffat, who himself has said in interviews what his current job is writing Sherlock Holmes fan fiction. By his own admission, he is a fanfic writer that gets paid. So there's all these mainstream examples of fan fiction. It's not something underground anymore. The first time the term fan fiction was ever used was actually back in 1939. And back then, it meant that it was all sci-fi, not a specific fandom. It was just fan fiction was a sci-fi story that wasn't written by a professional. So you have pro-fiction and fan fiction. In 1967, the Star Trek fandom came along and kind of altered the term to what we now know as fan fiction. But based on what fan fiction is becoming today, in my opinion, we kind of seem to be reverting to the original 1939 usage of it, in that it is either pro-fiction or fan fiction. It's not necessarily any difference other than you have studio backing. There's some really awesome fan fiction out there that is better than some of the canon stuff you'll find, and there's some really bad fan fiction. But the same can be said about canon. Going back to Doctor Who as an example, any Whovian will tell you there's showrunners that they did not like their work and showrunners that they adored. So on either side, you have good and bad.
True. I feel like there's, I don't know, I'm slightly out of touch just because I am so behind. But I feel like there's a slight split even in the Supernatural fandom from the Kripke era, like seasons 1 through 5, and then after season 5, because that's when it was supposed to end. But it just keeps going on and on and on, which I love, but
The show that doesn't end.
it's the show that never ends. Yeah, for sure. But
But
so there's
speaking-
different showrunners.
And speaking of CW properties, that actually brings me to one of the biggest mainstream fan fiction things that I came across is the entire Arrowverse. I mean, the whole thing's created by Greg Berlanti, who is definitely a big comic fan, and he's definitely taken some creative license from what the comics are to create his own universe. Um, some good, some bad, but the entire Arrowverse is basically just one giant fanfic world that CW decided to back and pour money to, and so it's officially licensed by DC. But all of these are just examples of ways that we're seeing fans take over the properties, and I think what we're seeing, what's causing it, is that as we're coming of age, those of us that are fans of these properties, it's not considered to be just a child's thing anymore where you grow out of it. So we're coming of age being fans and getting the opportunity to actually work on these properties. Therefore, it's not fan fiction isn't something that's as taboo anymore because the fans are writing the licensed stuff. The ones that aren't are still writing stuff that's really good because it's adults writing it now, whereas before it was young teenagers.
I think it's particularly surreal for us because we've been writing fan fiction together since we were 18, 19, maybe even before that. I don't know, at least 18, 19.
Since we were at least 16,
Yeah.
we've been writing it.
It's been a long time, so it's kind of like,
And
I
now-
want that job.
And we now have a 12-year-old daughter, and she is writing Hamilton fan fiction with her friends.
Yeah, she's obsessed.
So it's, it's very interesting to watch it coming full circle.
Yeah.
Different fandoms, different properties, but I confiscated her phone the other day and was looking through her stuff, and I'm like, this is the same type of stuff that I was writing at that age. Different characters, but the same type of content.
Yeah.
And with parents that are immersed in this kind of culture, she's going to grow up not feeling like she has to grow out of it, and it'll just continue to grow with each generation, where things like comic books, science fiction, all of that stuff isn't considered a child's thing anymore.
Yeah, I know I got a lot of crap from my mom.
Oh, I did too, in high school, and I think probably the same for a lot of people in our age group. Our parents did grow out of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it did become kind of a thing we had to hide until we got out on our own and realized, hey, there's more people out there like us, and conventions like this have helped bring us together. And see, we're not alone in the world. There's other people that write, there's other people that love these characters, and there's this real sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, and I love being surrounded by like so many creative people who are creative in different ways. It's just awesome. I get ideas from them, and
Right, and there's some people that write fan fiction, others that draw, but we all have the love of the characters in common, and I think it draws us together. I'm trying not to talk too much because I will carry the whole thing.
I'm super awkward, so hi. I'm just like, you can talk, and I'll throw my 2 cents in. Do any of you write fan fiction or read fan fiction or no?
I'll admit it, I read.
You read?
I read a lot.
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred fandom?
Like I said, SEO, if I can find cute ones, I'll read all the cute ones.
Have you read Twisted Shell?
I have not. And where did you find that? Is that on your side or?
It's on no, it's on Archive of Our Own. It's kind of lengthy. It's an alternate universe kind of thing. But I won't spoil anything, but it will rip your heart out. Just saying. Yeah. So if you don't want that to happen, don't read it. Like, it's been years since I've read it, and I'm still like, ugh,
Is that the one that you can't hear certain songs?
Yes.
Yeah, fan fiction, good written fan fiction can definitely stick with you.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's a lot that I start to read and I'm like, I can't read that.
People get passionate about it. I've had my own fan fiction site for, God, I think I opened it back in 2002, and I've recently relaunched it after a bit of a hiatus. And it's funny how when you get married and have kids, money for sites just isn't there. But I did just relaunch it. But back previously, when I was updating it every week, I would get all kinds of fan letters. Some of them were really sweet, and some of them were downright creepy. People get really involved, and
Yeah. Luckily, I've kept all of mine pretty private, like in like RP form and stuff that like not everyone has access to. So I don't know. I haven't put myself out there like that.
it can be a scary thing because you know, you're writing something that is your take on these beloved characters,
Yeah.
and if you put it out there like that, you kind of have to hope other people have the same vision as you do, or at the very least appreciate your vision. And you know, the same can be said for actual showrunners. I mean, they're putting their stuff on TV, hoping that we see their vision.
Yeah, showrunners, directors, like the whole DC cinematic universe.
We're not getting
is
into that.
Kind of a
We're-
train wreck, in my opinion. But anyway, love the characters.
To be fair, we have not watched any of the DC movies because we like the characters too much.
They're supposed to launch a streaming service,
They are,
Oh,
and
really?
but I don't know what is gonna be on there.
there's
Yeah,
actually some interesting stuff. They're
okay.
doing Young Justice season 3, which looks promising, and I'm willing to give the Titans TV show a chance,
Yeah.
only because I like what they've done with the Arrowverse. So DC seems to have a better lock on TV shows
Yes.
than they do the movies. And
Although I do kind of want to see Aquaman because Jason.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
it's fair.
I can't.
What?
Anyway,
Although I first fell in love with him on Game of Thrones, but that's completely irrelevant.
but if you do want to get into a cinematic universe, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a better example. It's actually something people like. And yes, Zack Snyder was a comic book fan, and he did his own interpretation of those characters. And that's a vision that nobody saw but him, especially when it came to
I
Superman.
mean, I think some people liked it, so.
The vast majority didn't share his vision.
Yeah.
Whereas the Marvel Cinematic Universe there's nothing else like it. It's unlike anything we've seen in the comic world. And again, I think a large part of that is because it was written by fans. I don't think anyone, any group could have come together and made such, I mean, it's not flawless. There's always going to be some things that could have been better, but as flawless as it could be, and comprehensive, other than people that loved those characters, to weave those stories together the way they did was quite amazing. And I don't love all those stories, but even the ones that I don't like are still better than a lot of comic book movies out there. Like Captain America. I'm not a huge Captain America fan, but those were still some good movies.
Yeah.
You get people that love the characters writing the stuff tend to, DC notwithstanding, you get better stories because you all have a common love of the characters. And there are a lot of fanfic writers out there that have become mainstream writers. I know Cassandra Clare is a very popular writer, and she started out writing Harry Potter fan fiction. So there are writers that start off writing fan fiction and transition into mainstream writing. I applaud them. It's something I've tried to do, uh, but it is hard when you're used to writing with other people's characters to suddenly take all of those elements out of your work and start from scratch. So it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I feel like I've tried to write stuff that's not fan fiction before, and I don't know, we might be getting off topic, but it is harder to like build a character from scratch rather than take a character that's already well formed and just make them a little bit different or play them more like yourself.
Well, it is, and it's also hard if you have a character you have written fan fiction about in your mind. It's hard to create a character that serves the same purpose without making them too much like the original character and running into copyright issues. So that's been my problem.
Yeah.
But it's still a goal of mine to transition into original work. Fan fiction really is a great starting point. Some people get to make a career out of it if they're lucky. I'm not sure if it still exists, but I know at one point Amazon actually had some licenses where they were able to sell certain fan fiction within certain properties.
We'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that still is a thing or not, but at one point they had set it up so if you wrote, I know Pretty Little Liars was one of the properties they had, and if you wrote a fanfic with those characters, you could actually make money off of it. And then you have a lot of companies now that are seeing fan fiction as a tool, a promotional tool, a way to get the show out there. Like I said, I know more about supernatural fan fiction than I do about Supernatural. So it's a promotional tool. I think we're going to see a day that people look for fanfic writers, the best of the fanfic writers, to write for them because they have the skills, they know the characters. In some cases, they know the characters better than the showrunners. We spend our lives writing out these characters, learning every aspect of them, and so I think there will come a day that fan fiction is used as a way to get more involved in writing canon, as opposed to just headcanon or fanon or
And
whatever.
if I could get paid to just write like Hal Jordan stories all day, that would be amazing. Because I love Jordan. I've written a
No,
lot
I still wish
with
they
him.
would hire me for Supergirl, but
Yeah.
that's beside the point. So I do want to open this up as a discussion, though. Does anybody have any other examples of fan fiction in the mainstream other than the things we've already mentioned?
We're gonna talk about it.
Or any specific fanfics that you've come across that you do see as better than canon or should be canon?
Twist and shout. No, it shouldn't be canon, but it was really well written.
I know you would make SDL canon if you could.
Oh yes. Oh, it is. It is. It's all subtext. It's there.
What do y'all think? Do you think that we'll start seeing more fans being the writers?
Well, I know like with the Harry Potter fandom, a lot of people are upset with the cursed child because it's considered canon. But I know maybe like probably not a lot, but I know several like Harry Potter fan fiction writers that are considerably better and would have shaped the story better and know the characters better than the people who wrote the cursed child. Because there are some things that are completely out of character, and obviously people change as they grow up and mature and go through life, but something just seemed really out of character for certain people in the Harry Potter community.
I haven't had a chance to read that one yet, but I want to.
I was like, okay, no spoiler, I got no spoiler. There's a lot of And it was just some wild stuff that you're like, oh, wow, imagine that happened.
I'll have to read it.
And I have to read it. But I heard the play is great. That is probably attributed to the performance of the actors. And the special effects and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think in terms of the personalities, some of the characters, some beats in the story just didn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
Well, you can write your own.
I will scroll one thing. They bring the time turner back.
Oh, okay.
They can like travel back years.
Okay.
Happened several times.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll get around to it eventually. I'm a full-time college student right now, and I work full-time in elementary school, so I have no time. This is like, I don't know how I manage this. So, so when I have time, I definitely want to read it for sure.
Yeah, adulting makes it hard, doesn't it?
Adulting is hard.
It makes it hard to read full books.
Yeah. Unless it's like, I don't know, something about autism.
I still have our daughter wanting me to write fan fiction with her, and
Yeah.
I'm like, in my free time?
All this free time we have.
I'm a huge Supergirl fan, and our daughter is a Batgirl fan, so she wants to write something along the lines of the DC superhero girls, and I think that's really cool to see a new generation of fanfic writer coming up, and the fact that it's not something she hides at all. When I was her age, I would hide it from my parents because I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel that need because it has become such a mainstream thing. She
Yeah.
doesn't hide it from us. She's just like, yeah, well, I wrote fan fiction. I'm like, cool.
And we're such geeks. She just lets her little geek flag fly, and I'm like, you're awesome. So,
There was a young adult novel recently, I don't remember the title. A friend of mine is a librarian, and the main character writes fan fiction, and that's the point of the story, and it's one of the ones
Oh,
in
that's
high school.
cool.
I can't remember what the title of the book was, but it was one where I was like, the title, you didn't know that that's what it was, but it was about a girl who wrote fan fiction, and I
was
can't
gonna say,
remember right now
do you have Google? Look
the
it up.
plot, but I didn't actually read the book, but she was telling me about it. I was like, okay, well, that's, yeah, as mainstream as you can get, a top 20 young adult.
Yeah, that's
novel.
Well, now I want to find it so my daughter can read it because she loves to read. And she's like, I've read Divergent like 5 times. I'm like, okay, I have to find you something else to read. So I'll have to see if I can find it for her, for sure.
Yeah, you know your kid reads too much when you don't ground them from TV, you ground them from books.
I refuse to ground her from books. Certain books.
There you go.
Okay, fine.
But, you mentioned you read supernatural fan fiction. Any other fandoms that you particularly enjoy? I see.
Honestly, the Marvel Cinematic Universe ones, like ones that like right after the Avengers.
Okay, cool.
Clint Howard is my
Okay.
TV right now. Clint Howard. Go with that.
Awesome.
And I see that you have a TARDIS shirt on. Doctor Who fan?
Yes.
Awesome. Who's your doctor?
That's,
Okay, respect.
Yeah, it's a good
you know,
one.
the one's not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So, I think it was like maybe 2 years ago when he was here. Like, we were just walking through Artist Alley, and then there's this big security guy. He's like, stop. And I'm like, okay, what? Matt Smith walked right in front of me. I was like, that happened, right? It's pretty awesome.
Some of the actors that do the signing, if you wait till they go to dinner, or if you're eating at one of the 3-4 restaurants that are right here, they'll be there, and you get, if you,
Oh, wow.
I sat in something a couple of years back, 4 or 5 years, when it was, he was in Boondock Saints,
Sean Patrick Flannery.
yeah,
I
and
love
he was at
Boondock
the
Saints.
table, sitting right next to us.
That's cool. That's
So it's one
awesome.
of those where like, okay, we won't talk about his show.
Right?
No, as soon as we got here, she took her head and bring her picture.
remember, I watched it in there, so maybe they never did.
I know, that's it. I'm like, Tenet's here. Yeah, he's my doctor.
So do y'all get to take photos with them and stuff like that because you're
No, we still have to pay for it.
But
Which we're going to.
say, we decided we needed a family photo with David Tennant.
We got one with Bruce Campbell a couple years back, so yeah, David Tennant's next.
Yeah, I did Matt Smith in New York a couple years ago.
Oh, nice.
My sister and I, so she has a big frame in her room.
Nice. That's awesome.
Her Facebook profile page for a while.
Now we're just like fangirling. That's cool.
It's all part of fan fiction, man. It's all tied together.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you haven't written fan fiction about what you would like to delve into?
Trying to think. I don't know, I've written some supernatural, I can't talk today. Some supernatural fan fiction. I've written comic stuff with you. I don't know.
I've kind of weaved an entire universe within my site at one point before I got married, had no life, and was a very prolific writer. There's easily over 500 stories on my website that I've written, and most of them tie together in some way or another within a shared universe. Cross fandoms, but shared universe. So.
What fandoms primarily?
Oh, geez. I guess primarily it started with Power Rangers. We've done Sailor Moon. Hints of Saved by the Bell got mixed in. But believe it or not, it all works.
I'm like, but Zach has powers. Zach has to get stop time. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
I hadn't thought about that.
That is
That is legit.
That's a very interesting take on the character. I'm gonna have to use that now.
I guess, well, now that you bring it up, Sailor Moon, I would love to write some Sailor Moon fanfiction. We, on our wedding cake, we had Sailor Uranus and Jupiter on the top of the
You mean
cake.
Neptune?
Neptune. I always say Jupiter. Neptune. Uranus and Neptune, not Jupiter. That would be wrong.
Yeah.
The name
It's
of- I'm sorry, the name of the book is Fat.
Okay.
okay.
That'll be easy to remember.
Remember, just not looking it up.
Right?
So yeah, my shared universe has a bunch of fandoms kind of woven together, but somehow it works. It's something I started back when before I actually started writing even. The first hints of it I created when I was like 6 or 7. And a child's imagination is an amazing thing. So it just came out of all that. And I wrote something that was unique and that people seemed to respond to, so I kept making it bigger and bigger. And then I did switch over to writing DC fan fiction for a little bit because I was just so angry at what I was seeing in the comics that I was like, okay, to keep myself happy, I'm gonna write these characters the way they should be written.
Yeah. Sorry, people are texting me. Where's the link?
Okay, so I guess we'll wrap up a little early.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming. And if you get a chance, check out our YouTube show at youtube.com/JoFTV. Thank you.
And what did you say your fiction site was called?
It's unchartedwind.net.
Uncharted
Wind.
Wind.
Yeah.
No, I don't write much. I read this.
Yeah, check me out. Thank
She's
you.
got plenty to read. Thanks. Oh, well, it says it's still going.